feel like God has brought me through some things in my life, and I said, once you take me through it, I'll use it. Just tell me how. And this honestly was like one of the first opportunities that He's really asked me to just share some of my story. So the whole purpose of this meeting or the message today, hopefully, is just to share with you guys some of my life and how I've gone through it, especially with God. So yeah, thanks to Sean, for giving me this opportunity to be in this church. And, just a little introduction about myself. I came to Christ when I was 16. I got invited to youth service. Couple of cute ladies, in high school, was like, hey, group of people meet on Thursday night. I was like, all right, come check it out. And then the rest is history. My youth pastor at the time, Pastor Ken, kind of just took me through the beginning of my journey. We started a church in Philadelphia called Epic Church. That's where I really found my faith. And then, I moved to Bucks County, and a couple of things happened in my life, and I started attending Central. That's where the connection came, and I attended Central for a couple of years. And honestly, it was a much needed period of my life, especially for the people and the connections I made here, because it really gave me a biblical ground. I spent so much time in the Bible during that period, and since then I've been called back to Epic, but I'm still pretty much connected to all the relationships that I've gained here at Central. I have a 5-year-old son. He's changed my life forever. He's the reason why I have so many gray hairs. I'm sure many of you know. I used to be an MMA fighter, and then, because of Troy, because of some other things in my life, I chose to kind of get rid of that part of my life and pursue the career I have now. And yeah, just again, I really appreciate this opportunity, and if you guys don't mind, I'll pray real quick. Dear Father, thank you so much for bringing this group of men together today. Thank you that we're able to fellowship together, and that we're able to just connect and just learn more about you and kind of what you've done in our lives. And just pray you speak through me to everybody, and I just pray that we have a great one. In Jesus' name, amen. So I want to start with a question, right? And I don't want you guys to answer this right now. I just want you to think about it as I'm going through my discussion. And that question is, who or what do you trust in when things happen, right? It could be good or bad, but we're going to focus on that, and then later I want us to kind of think about the good stuff as well. So what I want to get to first is trusting God in the middle of the storm, right? And there was a point in my life where I was young, and I was like, I'm hearing these things, these life events happening. I'm like, that could never happen to me, right? I was that naive, and I was just like, that stuff you hear from other people has never happened. What I've learned since that is, if it happens to somebody else, it could definitely happen to you, right? And what do you trust in? Like, who do you trust in during that time? So, when there's a storm, when the storm happens, when everything seems to be going wrong, whether it's a bad grade, a job loss, health scare, death or divorce, these are a point in our lives where we may hit rock bottom or close to it. And I feel that there's only two ways to respond. There's people who respond negatively, or people who respond in a positive way, right? And so those who respond negatively, they may choose to give up on school, turn to substance abuse, chase worldly things. There are people who trust in money and choose to throw money at everything in the middle of their storms. Maybe materialistic items. I think I have this house, this nice car, nice watch. And this is going to help me feel happy, right? And it's going to help the storm pass quicker. For people who go through breakups or separations, divorce, and maybe chasing someone else, trusting that would get them over the end of the relationship. And these are all things that may distract the person from the storm. And for people who respond positively, they may choose to study more. Use the job to get a better job. Lean less on their own understanding. And really, it's all about perspective. And I believe this is where God does His best work, in my own experience. So I'm gonna get real with you guys. I'm gonna get completely transparent, right? And that's just who I am. For people who know me, I'm completely transparent, bold in just my beliefs. And so I want to share with you guys a story. This really impact. This started the season of my life where I've met some of my closest friends, where I've grown the most I've ever grown in my life. So, and this is a really important date because on July 9th, 2019, my world came crashing in, right? My wife at the time, she had sat me down, after putting our son Troy to bed, and she told me I'm supposed to be with somebody else, and our marriage is over. And I honestly could not understand what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. Did we have the best relationship at the time? No. But we were both Christians, right? And Christians don't get divorced. And I couldn't understand. The number one thing that I thought would never happen had happened. So I took a couple weeks. I was trying to understand the magnitude of this, and I couldn't understand. Did I think I was always perfect in responding to everything that she was throwing at me? No. But honestly, it was the people in my life that I was blessed with that I was able to, and I still know to this day, and I feel truly that, I responded in a kind way, in a way that I was called to. And it was because of the people in my life that continue to remind me of that, and now I'm able to check with that, I feel that, I did as much as I could and as much as God called me to do. And I'll get more into those relationships further on in our discussion, but I kind of just wanted to throw that out there. I wanted to let you guys know, that's what started the storm in my life, and everything that has come from there, right? And not that, I know as I'm explaining this, I have a smile on my face, but I could have that smile now because of how God has taken me through the storm, right? At the beginning of this, I probably wasn't smiling as much, but now as I think about the events and how God has been there for me, it's amazing to go back and think about what He has done, since then. So how did that all start? What does that mean, right? Trusting God in the storm. For me, that meant I pretty much just got on my knees and I said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on in my life, but you tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And you know what? That was honestly the first thing He told me to do. Just thinking back, I was sharing this earlier. 2 years ago, He was just like, there's a men's breakfast happening at Central. I want you to attend. I was like, what? A men's breakfast? This is what you want me to do, like among other things? And normally, Saturdays, the weekends, this is where I prioritize other things. I was still training, I was working out. I would fill my days with so many different activities and had so many excuses. Men's breakfast, I would always have said no any other time. But this time, I was just like, all right, God, tell me what you're gonna do, I'll do it. He said, attend men's breakfast, and that's what I did. And I showed up. I met John for the first time, and Samuel and some other folks, and we had a small group discussion, and literally I couldn't get any words out. I just started crying, right? Grown man, I guess I may seem intimidating. I have a soft side, but I was just crying for 10 minutes straight. There was no questions. There wasn't any judgment. People were just, what's going on? We're gonna pray with you. We're gonna be there for you. And it's just that's what I knew. There was a reason why God called me here that day, and that was the start. That was the start of my journey with just fully, just putting my hands up and just saying, God, what is it that you want me to do, right? And that was the start. And when you think of being in the middle of the storm, you think of, Bible verse, Matthew 8:23 to 27. And this essentially is, Jesus and His disciples on the boat. It's in the middle of a crazy storm. His disciples are freaking out, and they go to Jesus, and he wakes up, and he's just like, what's wrong? What's going on? And his disciples are freaking out. Jesus is like, are you serious? Do you have no faith in me right now? What is this storm? And He calms the storm down, and His disciples are amazed, right? That's one of the verses that people generally lean on when they're in the middle of a storm. For me, there was another verse, right? And again, I was a fighter, so I think of everything kind of in a battle format. So for me, Ephesians 6:10 through 18 was my verse throughout this whole season. And I'll try to paraphrase or read it as quickly as I can, but so it's, finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rules, against the authorities, against the power of the dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm. Then with the belt of the truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. So I wanted to share with you guys that verse because it was such an important verse for me this whole season of my life, right? This whole battle, because what this indicated to me was, we're being called to put on the full armor of God, but it's not our battle, it's His, right? So, I share the story with Sean and John all the time where I just trusted God. I was just like, I'm protected, and that's having trust in God. That's what I'm saying. Like, you trust Him to fight your battles for you, right? I don't think I drew my sword once, in this season of my life. I held onto my shield. I stuck behind God, and when that shield broke, I just grabbed another shield, right? And I just sat there. I'm just like, all right, God, what can I do? What can I do? Like, how can I attack this? What can I do? And that's just me. When my back is against the wall, my main instinct is to just fight back and fight harder. But in this season, He just said, nope, just chill. I have this under control. And at times I would question it. I would talk to my friends, talk to my counsel, and they're just like, you just gotta trust Him, right? And honestly, it really changed my perspective on, how we look at things and just how we come to figuring out the solutions, for everyday life, depending on what it is in your season. And, in this battle, like I said, I think of the exit of the battle, so this was a battle for my life, my son's life, my wife's at the time's life, and, how can I put that full, complete trust, in God, because we say we trust things sometimes, but we're all humans and we try to do things ourselves. So this was a really difficult task for me, right? Which leads me to just being, just trusting God enough to be transparent, and like I said at the beginning of this talk, I'm completely transparent. I'll share my story. I try not to overshare, but I'll share it. And in this season of my life, I've learned to just be completely transparent to Him, but the people in my life. So God knows, who you are, what you do. You need to lie to Him. He'll know, right? But your friends, the people that He puts in your life, you can tell them that you're fine, you're good, and maybe they'll believe it, depending on who they are and who you are. So it's one of those things. It's like, do you want a fake relationship? Do you want surface level, what I call surface level friendships, or do you want to invest fully in your friendships where you could be transparent with each other, right? And the reason why I bring this up as the next section is I made the decision and I did what God called me to do, which was just be completely transparent, with Him and my relationship. So there was a point in my life where I had various groups. I had my MMA friends, I had my church friends, I had my work, buddies, and my MMA friends, it was all about fighting, it was, cursing, all that stuff. My church friends, it was, church on Sundays, praising God, every time we had a conversation. My work buddies, it was talking about, newest cars, our other colleagues, what's going on with them, etc. At this point in my life, though, God was calling me to just be one person, right? And when He challenged me to do that, and I stepped forward in that, I started to notice relationships change, right? Because when you are doing things or saying things for what you think people want to hear or what they expect you to do, you start to kind of be a chameleon, and you're not being your true self, and you're not getting deep in any type of relationships, and that's why I call it surface level friendships. When I decided to make decisions to just be the same person with everybody, right? That's when I started to notice things kind of change, things start to click. made buddies, church, everybody. They got one version. They got the truth. They got what was going on, the faith, everything. Everything, you know, everything changed from that point on. And I was able to really share my faith with folks that didn't know the magnitude of my faith. And what I mean by that is, people knew I believed in God. People knew I went to church, but they didn't know that I really put my full trust in, right? And being transparent in my current relationships and new relationships, like that's really, it makes it less stressful too. And that's why I've learned, because it just, you don't have to pretend, you don't have to kind of adapt. You just be you. You don't know various versions of it. It's not as stressful as you think, right? And one example of me just being completely transparent and just sharing my faith was especially, I'll bring up my divorce process again, because it was, again, it's a pivotal point in my life. During the divorce, I kept my wedding ring on, right? I think some of my buddies, my brothers here know about that. I kept my wedding ring on for, the process took about a year and a half. And she took her ring on early on. I kept it on. I had people in my life who were questioning it. They're saying, you're separated, going through divorce, why don't you take the ring off? And then I had people in my life who, recently came in during the season who said the same thing. They're like, we don't understand. You're getting divorced, you're separated. Why are you keeping the ring on? My explanation, my answer was always, this is what I feel like God's calling me to do. He's calling me to keep the ring on because it's not only my commitment to my wife, but it's the commitment to the covenant that I made to God. And I kept that ring on no matter who I met, work, outside of work, whatever. I kept the ring on and I shared that same story to everybody. And what it came down to was, people were saying, we don't understand it, because if we were in your same situation, we would take the ring off a long time ago, especially after what she did. But we respect that. We don't understand, we respect it. And when I realized what this was doing and the people around my life and relationships was, one of my best friends. So I have a lot of friends from various backgrounds. My one best friend, he's known me since I was in high school. He's not a believer. He's kind of changed somewhat through me and some of the influences that I've had, but he still doesn't understand me. And I remember we were watching church one Sunday. I because of COVID and being able to watch church virtually, I was able to kind of bring that into his home. And he actually sat down and listened to the service for the first time. And I was kind of explaining everything that was going on between me and Kelly, and some of the things that she was kind of putting me through at this point. And he was just like, I don't understand that. I don't know how you're getting through this, but you seem okay. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's not that I'm okay, but I have hope because of God. And he's like, you still have your ring on. I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, because of the commitment I made to God, and like, this is what it means to me. And he's like, I don't get it, but it has to be your faith, how you are the way you are right now, right? And the only reason why I bring that up is because he acknowledged that. And that's what happens when you are being transparent, especially with your faith. It gives opportunity to people around you who interact with you that chance to see like that light in you, right? And I ask this question all the time: when you meet somebody and somebody runs into you, do they see that in you? Like, do they see that you're a believer? Because if you're just, if you're walking around angry, if you're just unkind, what makes you different, right, than anybody else? And I used to get this question, especially during the season, like, why? Like, you seem different. You seem happy because of this, even though all this craziness is happening around you. I was always able to explain, my hope, and I was always able to explain why. And that gave me the opportunity because I was always being transparent in my faith, and being transparent in your faith also, like I said, being transparent to your circle, that opens so many doors too. And that leads on to my next point is, trusting God with your circle, right? And it all starts with being transparent. Like I said, John, Shashan, these are all brothers in my life, and Samuel, like, I was able to be transparent. I wasn't hiding anything, and that started the beginning of really lifelong friendship and brothers. And I truly think if I wasn't transparent with them, especially with the season of my life, nothing would grow, right? And God, in every moment of your life, He blesses you with people that are your lifelong friends, but He also removes some people in your life too that kind of prevent you from growing, right? It's up to you to take that step. So I bring that up because we all have ideas of people in our circle, like who we want to be friends with. People with similar backgrounds, similar interests, etc. At this point in my life, again, I was like, God, I'll whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And there are certain people that He put in my life where He was just like, I want these people to be your friends because they're going to help you grow, right? And any other normal circumstances I was in, I probably would have been like, all right, I'll get along with them, I'll be nice to them, but I don't know if I would consider them my core friends for whatever reason. But like Josh and Sean, like they came into my lives, and God challenged me to invest in them, and in return, be open and transparent to them, and that's where the investment starts, right? It's being completely honest with each other. And since then, Sean mentioned earlier, it's been a couple years now since we've been friends, and we have weekly conversations. John and I keep in touch, and it's just they've earned a seat at my table now, and I feel like I've earned a seat at their table, and that's what it's about, when it comes to the people that God has blessed you with. It's not about, we go over to their house or whatever. It's like, hey, everything's fine, like, everything's great, my life is perfect, because there's no point to that, why? And that's what I mean, like trusting in the people that God has put in your life, because until you're able to trust Him and trust them enough to just be open about everything, nothing's going to ever happen, right? You're always going to feel alone. And that's what I've learned. And it's not only just trusting God in your relationships, but trusting the people that God put in your life, right? And honestly, if it wasn't for the people that He's put in my life, I don't think I ever would have been able to get through that season of my life with grace, right? And it's just not the new people that I was able to continue to invest in. God brought back people into my life in this season, right? So I mentioned my youth pastor, Ken, who became my senior pastor. We lost touch, I stopped investing in that relationship, and he came back, and he just came back with so much grace. I was able to just explain everything that was going on, and I've been completely transparent with him since then, and he's just been a tremendous blessing, him and his family to me, and Troy, a couple other folks in my life that have come back. But honestly, in this season, in the circle, again, God took away some people that He didn't think should be in my life for this season, but it's just having faith in Him and just trusting Him completely in everything that He's brought, back full circle. So that to me, it's that trust. It's trusting God with who you should have in your life and who you shouldn't. So a couple of takeaways. I'm sorry, I've been sharing some of my life experiences in this season, and I hope it's stuck with you. So the takeaways for me is trusting God in a storm. So the one saying that I have in my head, or I had in my head all the time, was God doesn't promise you bad things will happen. However, He promises He will use it for His good, and He'll be there for you every step of the way. And what did that mean for me? So in that season of my life, God walked with me every single step. Every time I would talk to Him, would pray to Him, I just felt Him being there. And I'm sure many of you have that experience, but it just feels like nothing else, right? There's no other security in the world when you feel God's presence, especially when you're in the middle of something. And then just trusting God to be completely transparent. If you're having a bad day, it's not praying to God. It's like, oh, my day was great. Like He knows. He wants you to be honest with Him. That's the step. And then just trusting God, with the people that He put in your life, and just being open to, giving people a seat at the table, and just being completely open, which can be difficult at times, but that's what a true friendship is. So here are the questions I have, right? So the first question I had at the beginning of this talk was, who or what do you trust in when bad or good things happen, right? So that's the first question. Second question is, has there been moments in your life where God asked you to just say yes? And the last question is, and this is a challenging one, what's holding you back from fully trusting God? Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Say. It was a great message. So I want to tell you a little story first. I'm moving to a new house. This is 2 years ago. I'm moving to a new house, and pretty much the church family came together and helped me move, right? Because I gave up a job, I gave up money, I gave up all this stuff, so they come over and help. So I had to install a water softener, and we had to get this water softener to the basement. So there's two flights of stairs in two directions. So John and Roman, we're both engineers, so we sit down and we start mapping this out with pulley systems and bringing in incline planes and stuff like that. Now this is a 150-pound, maybe 200-pound water softener. To us, it seemed like 2,000 pounds. And this guy shows up randomly who I'd never met before, and he was there. His name was Say-T. And while we're spending 15 minutes, he grabs the water softener and then just kind of jumps down the stairs and puts it exactly in the place, spends like 5 minutes while we're like, no, it should be there, moving it back and forth, and that's how I met Say. So we're going to split up into groups now and jump and dive through those questions and kind of and kind of just throw spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks. I will need a favor from everybody, and so Jason Phillips, if you could just raise your hand, that'll be one table leading the group. Say will also be leading a group, so we're going to divide up into 3 groups. It'll be a little large today because we're short on leaders for the groups, but so if you go back to Jason's table, so I would say if you could grab a chair, go back to Jason's table, Chuck's table, and this table? Yeah, and we'll define who the leaders are of those groups. But I would also ask you a favor if you could just get more food. There's plenty left over. And what you guys don't know is that I spend an hour after everything is shut down finishing off all the food. It's my way of giving back to the church is to finish off all the food. So if you could just, grab some more food, and then, so Jason's table over there, Chuck's table here, and then John Almon's table here. Thank you.